At this time, I would ask all of the committee chairs to rise as you are able so that all may be recognized by this 28th General Synod. Committee chairs. Thank you. Now, the first committee to report out will be Committee Number 11. I call on the chair of Committee Number 11, Mike Castle, to present the recommended actions from Committee 11. And as you may or may not recall, the committee's assignment was the Common Agreement on Mutual Recognition of Baptism. Please note, this is the first of our business items from the committees.
Good morning, delegates. I'm Mike Castle. I am pastor of the Cross Creek Community Church, United Church of Christ in Dayton, Ohio, and a delegate from the Ohio Conference. I want to thank wonderful Committee 11 for their good and thoughtful and faithful work. Over the course of General Synod, it was my privilege to witness 3 deep and transformative conversations on this resolution. In each setting, Committee 11, along with a number of additional delegates and visitors, were an attentive and an engaged bunch of UCC folk. I especially want to express a generous thank you to wonderful Committee 11 for its spirited, honest, and respectful efforts together. In addition, I want to thank the Reverend Karen Georgia Thompson, who is on the stage with me, the United Church of Christ Minister for Ecumenical and Interfaith Relations, for her invaluable guidance and counsel to our committee. On behalf of Committee 11, I move that the 28th General Synod adopts the resolution on the Common Agreement on Mutual Recognition of Baptism and recommends that you vote to affirm this resolution.
Thank you. The motion before the body, as it comes from a committee, it has no need for a second. Mr. Chair, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, I do. Our time together as Committee 11 was rich. There were many ideas and concerns and hopes and fears shared among us. However, our time together was not without unresolved tension. With this common agreement on mutual recognition of baptism, Committee 11 found itself caught between 2 strongly held values at the heart of our Christian tradition. On the one hand was our value for ecumenical concern and our desire for oneness in the church. On the other hand was our value for inclusive language that welcomes and includes all. In other words, the committee found itself caught between honoring tradition and ecumenical commitment and being responsive to the still speaking God breathing and blowing among us. Concerns were expressed about the UCC codifying language in ways that we have not done so before, about affirming a written ecumenical agreement that seems to shut down dialogue to some, about autonomy being lost in a drive for unity. While the agreement may seem to some to be limiting by the use of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, it was also noted that there was some important movement in this document, namely that baptisms by our authorized ministers, be they female or gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender, are recognized and honored. In addition, while inclusive language, that is language that uses alternative words and metaphors, will not be recognized among our partners in this agreement, expansive language, or language that adds to the Trinitarian formula, is welcomed. For instance, Riverside Church in New York City is said to use expansive language by saying, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, Mother of us all. This is but one example of the possibilities of expansive language. And it should be said clearly that local churches and pastors are still free to baptize as they see fit. However, if it is important to our members, to our parents, and to our churches that our baptisms be recognized in the wider church, then this agreement is an essential guide. In the end, in spite of the inherent tensions related to this common agreement, Committee 11 voted overwhelmingly, 54-2, to affirm this resolution. It was the hope of Committee 11 that if the General Synod also affirmed this common agreement on mutual recognition of baptism, that it would also be allowed to offer an additional resolution related to the development of basic UCC, liturgical, pastoral, and theological resources. However, that desire was kindly ruled out of order, but we have been assured by our national staff that resources are promptly forthcoming. At the end of the day, Committee 11 discerned that this common agreement on mutual recognition of baptism was an extremely important document reflecting a long and evolving conversation with our sisters and brothers in the Roman Catholic Church and the Reformed Church traditions, and that it was important to continue to be in relationship and in conversation together. If General Synod 28 affirms this common agreement on mutual recognition of baptism with its 8 points, then the United Church of Christ will be the final body among these ecumenical partners to affirm this agreement. Committee 11 trusts that affirming this common agreement will give good guidance, will honor our past, will give good guidance in the present, and will trace some lines toward a hopeful and imaginative future.
Thank you. The motion before the body is to affirm the common agreement on mutual recognition of baptism. I want to remind you that this one resolution is a little different than anything else we have because of the collaborative effort, because it has been presented to our other Reformed brothers and sisters in faith. It cannot receive any amendments. So once we're done deliberating, we will either vote to adopt or to not adopt. At this point, we invite discussion. Those who would like to speak in favor of this motion, I invite you to head to a green microphone. Those who are opposed to this motion, I invite you to head to a red microphone. Any discussion? Let me say, I've been in the UCC for a long time. I didn't think I could be surprised. Wow. Oh, we have one. Let me point out that the microphones seem to be a little further ahead today, I think due to the table setting. So youth stewards, sorry. Could you please kind of wave your flags and your cards so people can tell where you are? We have one. Okay, thank you. Microphone 2, please state your name and your conference.
My name is Jane Cheek. I'm from the Southwest Conference. And I just want to congratulate our moderator for doing an excellent job of condensing all the discussion that we had in that committee. I think he adequately represented the many things that were hashed over. So thank you very much. I very much am in favor of this.
Thank you. The speaker at microphone 4, please state your name and conference.
My name is Ellen Whitco. I'm from the Central Atlantic Conference. I would just like to say that the language does disturb me. and that I wonder if by expanding upon it, whether the people in the agreement, I mean, is that really the spirit of what they were getting at? And are we really agreeing to what they've laid out? But my other point is that I'm not terribly concerned that other churches recognize the baptisms that I perform at my congregation. What I'm concerned with is that God recognizes the baptisms and the congregation knows what we're there and what we're doing. And I really feel that to make the word Father so important is really contrary to what I believe or what I've experienced as important in the United Church of Christ. Thank you.
Thank you. One quick reminder, realizing that we know we are a delightfully diverse group. I do believe we're a bit more respectful if we don't applaud for points. As one friend pointed out, it's better to let the clapping go in your head. And I remember clapping in my head, and he said my head must be very thick because he couldn't hear it. But if we could please just be respectful. Okay. And another reminder, you may need to adjust the microphone to where you are so people can hear you better. Microphone 1, please.
My name is Anita Bradshaw. I represent the Minnesota Conference on the Office of General Ministries Board. I'm also on the Committee for Ecumenical and Interfaith Relations, and I'm a theologian, but I don't want to talk as a feminist theologian this morning. I want to talk from personal experience. You know, our life journeys take us many different places. My life journey in faith started in the Methodist Church before it was united. I was sprinkled as an infant and therefore baptized. Later, my family made a journey into the Southern Baptist Church, and we almost didn't make that journey because the pastor said, your baptisms are not valid. Not because of the words that were used, but because of the form of the baptism. I don't know how my parents resolved that with the pastor. I was a child, and my brother and I were shipped out of the room while the adults argued. I know my mother was very angry and insulted, and we almost didn't join that church, even though we wanted to. I've been immersed, and God knows if I'm not covered by now, I don't know what can happen. Later in my journey, I became Roman Catholic. The priest didn't ask how I had been baptized. He just said, have you been baptized? And when I said yes, he said, great. I said, do you want a certificate? He said, are you telling me I can't trust you when you tell me yes? I think things change. I am in a congregation now that has a marvelous and glorious, inclusive, expansive baptismal rite. It is so marvelous and inclusive and long. As a pastor, I don't know how to say it. I have to have somebody stand next to me and hold it so that I can read it. I love it. I don't know where my congregation would be with this, but I know my congregation would have this conversation seriously because we take seriously the words that we use. I just think we need to look at the idea of unity. And I encourage us to adopt this because, in fact, it is painful to be told you don't count. What you had doesn't count. And personally, as Mike pointed out, I'm thrilled as an openly lesbian woman pastor that the Roman Catholic Church has to recognize baptisms. I do.
Thank you. The red microphone in the back, please.
My name is Dominique Atchison. I'm from the Michigan Conference, and I know the people in Committee 11 are tired of hearing from me, but I'm going to say, you did a very good job at explaining some of the things that I said, but there's one point that I want to make also. The fact that as an African American and someone raised in the National Baptist Church, I've stumbled through the New Century hymnal because the language was changed, because a lot of stuff is considered exclusive or not inclusive, including the African American national anthem. And so my question and my concern is, where do we draw the line in terms of inclusive language? And why is this acceptable, but the language that I grew up at as an African American and in spirituals, not acceptable? And so I feel like there's a problem of throwing what we hold dear and true in terms of inclusivity under the bus for the sake of ecumenical dialogue. And I really feel like that's very problematic, and I'm really struggling with that. And I think that we can, as you said, continue to have dialogue that's not in a written document form, that we sit at a table but not have to compromise, but just kind of continue to dialogue and agree to disagree. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Green number 2, please.
Good morning. I'm Kaji Spellman, a local church pastor in New York City, and I rise in such delightful support of this common agreement. We as a church, and my understanding of a theology of baptism is that as we baptize people, we baptize them into the one true church, which is far beyond any understanding of denomination or affiliation. It doesn't require any particular language or words besides the Spirit to include someone in a sacramental moment into the life of the Christian church. And so I love to be part of a denomination that is able to see these moments as Spirit-driven, that the action comes from God, that we don't feel a requirement of language in order for that to work. Now, that is not the case for some of our ecumenical partners. And so now that we have an understanding of what the common language is that some will understand, and by the way, it's not just language, there's also water that's required, and a spirit of intention to do this very thing, baptize into the church. Those are things we haven't talked about in this setting yet, but also are part of what the document outlines. We then can understand what it takes for other people to be able to understand the spirit of what's done in our local churches.
30 seconds.
Now, what we have to remember then is that, and celebrate, is that we are a church that really recognizes local church autonomy, and there are no requirements being put here for anyone who feels uncomfortable with it. So I celebrate that
15.
and hope that we can celebrate this important moment in the church in which we found agreement and not wanted to hurt each other, as many ecumenical discussions have been in the past.
Thank you. Anyone I know we want to applaud whenever we hear somebody sharing our voices, but we really need to not today, please. Anyone at a red microphone before I take a green microphone? Okay, number 1, please. State your name and conference.
My name is Elizabeth Ettinger, and I'm a local church pastor and a member of the Central Pacific Conference. And I reluctantly stand to affirm this resolution only because I know what it is like for our young adults when they want to get married to someone of a different denomination and they ask if they have been baptized. And I get a letter that asks me who baptized them and what words were used on their baptism, and they have had their baptisms declared illegitimate. And it is really a difficult moment for them. And I, as much as I don't particularly like the language that has been chosen, it's not what I would choose. I would do it in support of those young people so that they don't have to go through having their baptisms declared publicly null and void. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one at the yellow microphone.
Luther Holland from the Southwest Conference. Madam Moderator, I would like to ask our ecumenical officer a question regarding ecumenism with the African Methodist Episcopal Church, the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, the Christian Methodist Church. Those are our African American based denominations. And the question I'd like to ask her, what, in passing this resolution, what does that drive a nail further into the lack of conversations around ecumenism with African American denominations, or does it have any effect?
It does not have any effect on our relationship with those communions with whom we sit in conversation through Churches Uniting in Christ.
Okay, and I've got one more at yellow.
Hi, Zach Grant from the main conference. I'd like to make a motion to call the question.
You'd like to call the question? Since that is not debatable, the way we would call the question and that ends debate, that is we need a second. We have a second, thank you. That requires a 2/3 majority vote. Are you ready to push some buttons? If you are in favor of calling the question ending debate, you press 1 for yes. If you are opposed to ending debate and calling the question, press no on number 2, and to abstain, 3. We're not ready? Can we vote? I believe we can vote now. Remember, if you are in favor of ending debate, press 1 for yes. Opposed to ending debate, 2 for no, 3 to abstain. 15 seconds.
Tell them to ignore the title that's on the slide. Just tell them to ignore the title on the slide that says in favor of the proposed amendment.
And we're ignoring the title. We have some. Want to do over? Okay. The beauty is we're going to stop at do-over. Okay? So. Are we ready for a do-over? Yes, the motion before us is to close debate. So, we are ready. All in favor of closing debate, press 1. All opposed to closing debate, press 2. All abstaining, press 3. Hear you. Just it's working for nearly 800 of us right now. Try again if it hasn't registered. What are we doing? 15 seconds. Okay, we have a majority in favor of ending debate. So debate is closed at this time. That moves us into consideration of the motion before us, which is the recommendation to affirm the common agreement on mutual recognition of baptism. We have a yellow.
Point of privilege.
What's your privilege?
Well, first to David Stewart from the Illinois Conference. First of all, I wanted to make sure that we realized, even though I think we all did, that the projection for that vote was incorrect. It said that was the vote of the agreement. Take a second personal privilege and ask if somehow this microphone setup get changed, because 3 is blocking 5 and it takes a long time to go running around.
I hear that. We will see what we can do about the microphone setting. And a reminder with the votes that as we're figuring this out, that's where indeed the motion was on ending debate. We have stated that, so that's what that was for. If you came in late after the 8:15 this morning, there was a reminder that with the voting machines, you do not press the channel button. That could actually upset your mechanism. Could upset a lot. So you just press 1, 2, or 3. If you do feel that you have an issue with your voting machine, there is a place to take it. And down here in the back. Okay, so the motion before us is to affirm the common agreement on mutual recognition of baptism. To vote in favor of that motion, press 1. To vote in opposition to that motion, press 2. To abstain, press 3. Are we ready to vote? Then once our slide comes up, begin. You may have to press it again. Be patient. You should have the color green come up. There should be a little thing too that says you're on channel 41 in the top part of your gray screen, so you know you're on the proper channel. Ten seconds left. Okay, voting has closed. We had over 800 come in. Now, why are you taking away my thunder when I don't even have a chance to report on what the result was? Really, friends, the motion carries. And thank you for the work.